Welcome back. In this video I'm going to show you the A831 and A832 access and ventilation grate. They're exactly the same, one's black and one's silver. So the A32 is the silver one. Now these are a product that we've innovated, developed, and it's used for very low height installation scenarios where basically it's a replacement for a board that you can just, so instead of installing a board, you can install one of these. And what it allows you is to get access to underneath the decking boards and under the structure. So say for example, on an area that's over a waterproof membrane, you can actually, the grates are removable. You can take it off, you can lift it off, and you can clean underneath, and you can get access to sumps, downpipes, drains, or anywhere where there might be debris buildup and you want to clean that out periodically. Or you want to get access to be able to get a hose underneath or pressure wash underneath the deck to keep it clean. So that gets used a lot in hospitality, in those scenarios where they want to clean off, beer that gets spilt or food or what have you. Or it gets used a lot in residential scenarios also, where you've got a lot of debris that's falling down onto the deck surface, and it may fall through the decking boards or what have you, and so typically that debris will build up over into the gutters and the sumps, and so you want to be able to clean that out to keep the structure in that whole area underneath the deck nice and healthy. So the other function of it is that it really promotes ventilation underneath the surfaces that you've installed. So you want to keep your area as dry as possible, so you want the airflow going underneath that area, because sometimes these structures are very low to the ground or to the waterproof membrane. So a dry space is a healthy space, is what we say. So now let's take a look at what you get in these kits. So this is a grate kit, so it's called a QWICKGRATE. They come in near on a 10-foot length or 2.8 meters. Now, and you can cut them to any length that you want depending on what joist centers you're using in the structure design. Now they come as a kit, and you get essentially the grate, and you get these mounts. So we call these a snap mount because the grate snaps into place, and you obviously get our A831 screws. I'll talk about those shortly. Right, so let's take a look at how you go about actually installing these grates. I've got my joists here. Now those joists could be at whatever centers your surface product requires, and you can cut down your QWICKGRATE to any length that you need, so it always lands on a joist, and that's where you join it. So let's look at this scenario where, let's say, imagine that the house line is here. You've got the inside of the house here, and now you're stepping out onto the deck. Now typically this is where you have the least amount of height to be building your structure, and so that's also where you want the most amount of ventilation going through, because you're typically talking very low height availability there to put your structure in. Now let's look at the order in which you're installing this. So typically when you're laying your boards, you're actually starting from the front edge of the deck and you're working it back towards the house. And the reason being is because often we always want the front edge of the deck nice and straight and square, but as you work back towards the house, often the house, if it's not new or even new houses, the walls are never perfectly straight. They've always got some kind of curve in them, or they're out of square. And also you've got things like the window systems and things like that, where you might have to be cutting around depending on what level the decking boards are with your window systems or your door systems. So, and you don't want to be cutting down a grate down to a narrow width. So we always put the grate kind of one board back from the very edge, so that if you're going to install another board here, you can cut the board down to whatever width you want and make it any shape that you want. So going back to this scenario, we've got the joists here. We've pretend that we've installed these boards from the front coming back to here. By the way, I've got my twist clips holding in my boards here, or these actually might be top fixed, screwed and plugged or what have you. And now I've got these snap mounts. So this is a product that comes in the kit. So you can see here, it's a really cleverly designed mount, which this mount gets screwed onto the joist, but you don't have to screw down the grate to the joist. This is the innovation part of this, where you've got essentially like these barbs here, and the grate pushes down onto there, like so. So if I was to snap that down, and I won't do it now, but you can see how that kind of fits into place. So I'm going to take out that. You can see now that I can take this snap mount, I can put it into the channel, and I simply just push it into the board. So this what do you call it, tongue, actually goes down and goes into the decking boards, like so. Now I've got our screws here, I've got 2 holes, so I want to use 2 screws, so essentially just put those in there and screw them off, and then likewise here I would then screw those off as well. Now you can see I can now take my grate, and you can see I've got it sitting in here. Now it creates a perfect 1/4 inch gap in between the board and the grate. Now I'll show you. That's now snapped in place, so it's a friction fit and it clicks into place, so you know exactly when it's secured. And now I've got my tongue here once again, so that when I want to take my next decking board and I cut the decking board to width, and now I slide it back into there, and then this gives you a fantastic finish. And now to lift this up, you can simply use an Allen key underneath here, pry it off, lift it up, and it'll pop out. You can wash underneath, you can inspect it. You can get access to services such as electrical, plumbing, or your drainage. And yeah, you can do that periodically to keep your area underneath there very healthy. Okay, so if you're going to join your grates end on end with a butt join, they can't share a common joist. You have to use the A205 bracket, which is our double joist bracket, and that essentially, refer to that video because that shows you how you can do create a double joist for doing a board join or a butt join of these grates. Let's talk screws. This is the A401 screw. It's our most common screw. It comes in a box of 50 and it's included with all the QWICKBUILD frame components in the box. So you get 20% extra screws, and you don't have to calculate these individually. It's already included with the components that you're purchasing. So it is a self-drilling screw. It is a 5/8 length for those of you that are using standard measurements, and a 16mm for those using metric. It's a 304 stainless steel screw with an electrophoresis coating, which means it takes it up to about a 316 in terms of its corrosion resistance. Now the head of the screw is a 3/8 hex head, and that just happens to fit perfectly in with the 3/8 driver that we provide. It's a one-handed operation, so you can use this and just drill it straight into the bracket. The other attributes around it is that it actually has a self-drilling tip on it, which means that you've got no pre-drilling required. The other attribute is that it's got a rubber shoulder washer, which is actually soft. Not that soft, but you can see my fingernail digging into it. But what that means is that it acts as a shoulder washer. It isolates the screw from the bracket, but it beds the screw really nicely into the profile when you're screwing it in. So that is the A401 self-drilling screw that comes with all the components.